Bless, yep. You know, I went to Armenia and I was normal hated. It was wonderful. I looked everybody right in the eye. It was just fabulous. I come here to this abnormally tall country in the world, and it's unusual. Well, I'll take some questions at the end. I think that a lot of people were rather depressed about the last election results, so we can perhaps have a giant counseling session here tonight if you'd like to talk about a few different things that maybe I won't touch base on. But I do want to talk about what happened and what didn't happen, because it's very clear what didn't happen, but most people don't know what did happen. Now, first of all, at the presidential level, millions of people did not vote for Obama that did vote for him in 2008 simply because he is a lousy president. And I think the country recognizes that. But they didn't convert and vote for our guy, Romney, if he was our guy, because he was our nominee, because, frankly, negative advertising is designed to suppress your opponent's vote. And $500 million at least worth of negative advertising by Obama's team, and then another $500 million from the media with a negative coverage of Romney, worked to cause people not to convert and vote for Romney. But really, it was a very tight race. Obama barely won, if he won at all. That was a fantastic presentation you just heard about the Election Integrity Project. It really is fabulous, and you should support that. She's absolutely right about the test marketing in Nevada. In Nevada in 2010, the Republican Tea Party nominee was ahead the weekend of the election. Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday polling before the Tuesday election. She was ahead by 5 points, and she ended up losing, I believe, by 5 points. A swing of 9 or 10 points is outside of the margin of error and just doesn't happen without fraud. In this last election, it was actually pretty close. In Florida, 8 million votes were cast, and Obama won it by less than 75,000. That's a potential fraud vote out of 8 million. It is. There's no question about it. So we had a pretty bad candidate with a bad campaign. He's a good guy, great guy, you know, a Boy Scout of a guy, but they turned him into an evil, mean person through the negative advertising, which they were going to do to any nominee. But we were on the Tea Party Express bus tour going through Ohio in late September. Ohio might be a battleground state, I don't know. Maybe. Could be. It's late September, you're not sure yet. Ohio. Yeah. And the people at our rallies for the Tea Party Express were coming up to us, asking us for Romney-Ryan signs. Now, if a campaign doesn't have yard signs in a battleground state like Ohio in late September, only 5 weeks from the election, your campaign is not as well organized as perhaps you would hope. Well, the key is to continue to promote what it is that Obama's philosophy stands for. Most people don't know, and it's really easy to summarize. And whenever I deal with the press, I always ask them if they've heard of a phrase, because it sums up Obama's philosophy perfectly. And I think it keeps us on the winning side of the argument. You see, Obama's philosophy, no matter what the issue, can be summed up by saying he believes that you should have people contribute from those according to their ability to those according to their need. And I usually ask the reporter, have you ever heard of that before? They say, oh, no, never heard of that phrase, no. And they honestly haven't, because they don't know anything.
Could you say that last one louder?
They don't know anything. They really don't. And they're rather lazy about it. But that is, of course, Karl Marx's philosophy. I mean, that is classic, textbook, traditional explanation of Marxism. From those according to their ability to those according to their need. And that's what he stands for. And unless you and your neighbors stand for that, you can't support him or anybody in his party, because they all support that, frankly. So we had a lot of victories that the press doesn't want to tell you about. In fact, they want to tell you the Tea Party movement is ending. It's almost over.
No.
Well, don't you know, it can't possibly be the case. Yes?
I'll say, I think we're just getting started.
We are just getting started. You're absolutely right. No question about it. You know, in 2010, we came on the scene and moved a lot of the electorate, had a huge victory. And there were a couple of $1 billion that we couldn't compete with this last cycle, but we won anyway in elections that could make a difference. Out of the 35 freshman Republican coming into the House, 27 of them are Tea Partiers. 5 replaced other Tea Party members, but 22 are brand new. So we've added to our ranks. In the Senate, we have 3 freshman Tea Partiers. Ted Cruz in Texas, who is just fantastic. We worked for 2 years with Ted Cruz to get him prepped and ready and to win that primary, and he's just going to be spectacular. You're going to love Ted Cruz. And of course, Deb Fischer in Nebraska and Jeff Flake in Arizona. Tremendous new Tea Party members of the Senate. And now in South Carolina, we have a Tea Partier who's been appointed to the U.S. Senate. Right? Do you know his name? Anybody? Scott. Right. He's a great guy. Well, how about in the House for the Democrats? They have 29 freshmen in the House, and only 9 of those face Tea Party candidates. So they actually beat establishment candidates. You don't hear that, though, from the establishment, do you? You think it's because Tea Partiers got nominated that we couldn't pick up more seats. The reality is we nominated too many establishment members. That's why so many Democrats won, because they were facing people who couldn't put a message together. Out of the 9 freshman Democrats in the Senate, 8 of them faced establishment candidates. So for those 8 elections, it's because we didn't have a Tea Party nominee that the Democrat won. The one race in which a Tea Party candidate was nominated and didn't win was in Indiana. Now, he was a spectacular candidate. Richard Murdoch is the sitting state treasurer. He won 2 statewide elections. He got elected as treasurer, did such a great job, he was re-elected as treasurer, and got more votes than the Indiana governor. And you've all heard of Mitch Daniels. They touted him as a Veep. But Richard Murdoch got more votes than him in Indiana in the same election when he got re-elected as state treasurer. That's how good he is. Now, why couldn't he win for the U.S. Senate? Because Dick Lugar, who doesn't live in Indiana, we had great fun with that. We actually went to the door of his house where he's registered to vote. Talk about voter integrity. We went to the door of the house where he was registered to vote, and we asked to talk with him because he's registered to vote there. And the person who answered the door said, well, he sold this house 34 years ago and hasn't lived here since. But there's a provision in Indiana law which allows him to keep the old residence for a place to vote from, even though he lives in Washington, D.C. and had for 34 years. And so we had a lot of fun with him. And as part of the revenge for beating him in the primary, he did not endorse Richard Murdoch. The sitting U.S. Senator, establishment guy, wouldn't support the Tea Party nominee of the party for the U.S. Senate. A House divided, ladies and gentlemen, cannot win. His voters wouldn't come out and support him. He told people privately, publicly, he'll say, oh, of course I support the Republican nominee without ever mentioning his name. But privately, we know that he was telling his people, yeah, we don't want that guy. Let's show him. Let's teach him a lesson. Don't support that guy. And so without the Republican establishment coming on board with the Tea Partiers, how was he to win? So there were a couple of people who lost, like Alan West and Joe Walsh, and those are a couple of big names. But frankly, gerrymandering played more of a role in both of those defeats than the fact that they were Tea Partiers. So a clear message will still resonate with Americans. You can't spend your way out of a deficit. You can't borrow your way out of a debt. We spend too much money. We have to get our fiscal house in order. That message will resonate. It really does. The key now is to recruit good candidates in 2014, because that's going to be another 2010. We're going to win, and win big in 2014, ladies and gentlemen. It's going to be huge. One of the people you really ought to support is a guy named Chris Mitchum. Chris Mitchum, maybe you know of his dad. His dad's name is Robert Mitchum. And Chris Mitchum is in Santa Barbara. And he would like to run for Congress, and I'm encouraging him to do so. He was president of the Screen Actors Guild, the same union that Reagan was president of, and he's just as conservative as Reagan. He's been blackballed by the Hollywood establishment. He had to go to Europe in order to do some TV and movies there because he couldn't get work here. But he lives in Santa Barbara, and he's interested in running for Congress, and I'm hoping that everybody will get on board and support him. He'll be a tremendous spokesperson for us. But this last election cycle, we barely lost. If you had flipped 228,000 votes total throughout Nevada, Florida, Virginia, and Ohio, Obama would have lost and Romney would be president. 228,000 votes was the margin of victory. That's not a mandate. That's a fraud date. Is there such a thing? Fraud date? Such a thing? Fraud date, yeah. You can, how about 500,000 votes switched, and you would have had a net gain of 6 Senate seats for 500,000 votes. So frankly, our message is the majority message. Anytime we poll our message, other than that person, it's like on that commercial, and everybody likes more cash except that one kid. Yeah. You know, our message is received very positively by everybody across the country. When we poll it, 75 to 80% of Americans agree with the Tea Party message until you tell them it's the Tea Party message. And then they wonder whether or not they support it or not. So anyway, I think I'm being signaled it's time for questions because the message is not sufficient to keep everybody happy. But frankly, you know, we're winning. We're winning across the country. We are. Yes, sir. Let's take a few questions and talk about it.
Let him talk into the mic so everyone.
Okay. I'll hold it.
What did not work?
What did not work? What did not work was putting messages on TV and hoping that that will overcome the negativity against our candidate. You know, in Ohio, Obama had 500 paid workers on the ground, neighborhood to neighborhood, getting to know you and what you like and what you don't like, and making sure that you would get to vote. But frankly, the Romney team didn't have that. All they did was raise a lot of money and then put it on TV. Now, why would they do that? Because people who put it on TV receive a commission for putting it on TV. And the consultants who get paid that way don't get paid when they have grassroots activism. So they don't believe in grassroots activism because they can't benefit from it and they can't control it. They can control only the message they put on TV. So you have to compete on the airwaves, in the TV and in the radio, in the mailbox. You have to do that. But that alone isn't enough. Our consultants, Karl Rove and those folks, they think that's all they need to do. Give us another $100 million, we'll put ads up. Well, listen, if I had $100 million, we'd have a ground game. Yeah, the second $100 million would go on TV. Next question. Yes, sir, way back there. I feel like Phil Donahue.
Thank you. Can you give us your thoughts on the state of the California Republican Party and what the future is and what you think we need to do to pull it together?
Okay, what California Republican Party is that you're referring to? We need to nominate good candidates. It starts at the local level and it graduates up from there. Running for the water board, for the city council, for the school board, those are important elections. You learn about grassroots campaigning there. And then you graduate up to the state assembly and the state senate. And eventually you have a maturity in your election. Eventually you have people understand how to get it done. And eventually you'll have a majority if you have the right message. And I think we do. But frankly, our people don't stand for anything in Sacramento. I never hear them talking about the mess that we have in CalPERS, for instance, or CalSTRS, and the deficits that we're running, and the fact that raising our taxes to the highest level in the nation isn't going to raise any more money for the state. it's in fact going to drive out the income-producing element of our state, and already has begun to do so. But don't worry about the fact that we have the highest income rate, because we've balanced that with the highest sales tax rate. See, that's their philosophy. It's all balanced, don't you know? We're high in everything. Well, that message has got to change. Now, the media has always been against us, and they always will be against us. But hopefully we can change some of that by graduating people into the School of Journalism and getting them into the world of journalism. We're doing that at Hillsdale College, which is where I work. We actually have a lot of people going into journalism from Hillsdale, and I think we'll start to change some of that going down the road. But that was a good question. Yes, ma'am?
What success do you think you're going to be able to have in really making sure that the candidates going forward understand the enemy? You alluded a couple of times to fraud, but it's more than that. It's election corruption all the way from the beginning to the end. And I just wonder if you feel that focusing on that, making sure the candidates understand that will make a difference.
See why I like coming here? These are good questions. These are informed voters. The uninformed electorate doesn't come to the Tea Party. Certainly not the Tri-City Tea Party. I frankly have found that every time you have a candidate who's able to take a tough position on a controversial issue, that's a candidate that you can trust. For instance, today it's the gun control debate. Well, you know, why don't our guys stand up and talk about the way to solve the problem of crime? Because, you know, the number one weapon that is used to commit murder in this country, does anybody know what it is according to the FBI?
The hammer.
No, not the hammer. Although the hammer is the correct answer, that the hammer is used more than the rifle to commit murder, but it's not the number one weapon. Not the fist, it's actually a weapon. A baseball bat. A baseball bat. Now, I personally think if I was in Congress, I would propose banning the baseball bat. It would make the point, wouldn't it? You know, the baseball bat would have to be a certain size. Can't be over a certain weight limit. You can't have more than one baseball bat in the house. We have to do a background check and make sure when you buy a baseball bat that you actually have training in how to swing it and where to play the game. Because after all, a baseball bat can be used for legitimate sporting purposes. We're not against that. Does any of this sound familiar? You know, and you should use a permit to have a true baseball bat. And nobody needs a major league baseball bat but the professional. You know, so, you know, and this is an FBI statistic, ladies and gentlemen. So why don't they combat it that way? You know, when I was in the assembly, somebody said that we ought to, there was actually a law the Democrats were talking about, and it made it to the floor, and they said we're going to require everybody who rides a horse to wear a helmet. Because it's just a smart idea that you wear a helmet. Now, it may be a smart idea. I don't know. I don't really ride horses. But if you want to wear a helmet, I think you should wear a helmet. And if you don't wear a helmet, you want to ride your horse, ride your horse. So I proposed an amendment to the law. And I said, we should require, because you see what happened in the argument is they said, well, the horse might stumble and fall and you'll fall off and hurt your head. And then medical complications. I said, we should require that the horse wear a helmet too. Because, well, you know what, don't you like horses? You know, don't you care? The horse is the one that fell. You know, don't you? So I made this point that we should require that the horse be helmeted to protect the horse. And they all kind of looked at each other and scratched their heads, and the bill didn't actually go anywhere. So I would fight them. And then to conclude, it seems as if, in my experience, I don't know where you would stand on the issue of abortion, but in my experience, I have found that if a person can stand up in the pro-life arena and make a cogent argument and stand on his pro-life principles, that's a person you can trust on tax issues and fiscal issues and all the other issues as well. Hi.
Hi, I just wanted to let everybody know here that I'm in the trenches. I do the petitioning. I'm the one that stands in front of everybody, registers them to vote in Walmart or any store that I can not be kicked out of, which I do a pretty good job of not being kicked out because it's my legal right to be there. So I'm batting for all of you to get your voice heard, and I cannot be biased. I have to present the facts, and then it's up to you to put it on the ballot so that it can be voted on.
What's the question?
The question is, why do we have judges in our state that overrun the entire majority that'll vote for something, have it put on the ballot, turn it down, and then one person overrules it? This is why we have a lot of apathy in our state.
Okay. Okay, very good. Judges are a problem, and judges are appointed by bad governors and approved by bad Senate members, and frankly get reelected because nobody knows anything about it. So if you're looking for something to start as an organization, it would be something to recruit good people into the bench and also to screen the people that ought to be voted out when their time comes up for re-election. And I'd wholeheartedly support that. How much time do we have?
2 more minutes.
2 more minutes. Yes, ma'am, over here.
I just want to know, the Tea Party has been demonized so badly, and I'd like to know what is going to be done to change that. I mean, we need to get we need to change that.
The Tea Party has been demonized badly. What are we going to do to change that? All the conservative movements demonized badly. But you know, there is something that can be done. Because if you look to the successful political movements, they're political movements that have more to them than just politics. Unions, for instance, on the left, they have a reason to get together, their employment, and then they have a political component to their gathering that impacts their employment. So there's, I don't know, for lack of different characterization, there's a social component to it that then augments that social component with political movement or political activism. The NRA, that is a social organization. They hunt, they fish, they shoot trap and skeet and sporting clays, and they collect guns. That's a social component. They're doing something together, and then they augment that with political activism because it helps their interest. So for the Tea Party movement to mature and to grow and to become a permanent force in society, I think there has to be a social component to it beyond just the political activism. Because frankly, people like me are very strange. You know, I'm a political animal. I love politics. For me, every 4 years, the election is like the Super Bowl and the World Series and the World Cup, and it's all thrown in together. And Stanley Cup, okay, we'll go there. For you hockey fans. And so, you know, there aren't a lot of us. Most people just lead their lives, and then they think about voting, you know, a couple days before the election. So you need to have that social component, and for me, I think that church involvement is the most natural social component that aligns with our ideas. And so I'm beginning to work now at the leadership level to have a Tea Party unity where we who, frankly, most of us attend a church. So now we try to recruit amongst our friends within church in order to bring that movement together with a social component. And we're going to be reaching out to pastors, and we're going to be doing this nationwide, and I'm working with a number of national ministries to do this, and I think it's going to have a dramatic impact moving forward. So thank you very much. Gary?